In my last video, I gave you my thoughts on the Tier 7 IJN premium battleship Tsurugi. But at the time I made that video, it wasn't possible for me to really tell you whether I could recommend the Tsurugi. But as of yesterday, it's possible for me to tell you that now, and the answer is an unambiguous and resounding no. It is not worth it to get the Tsurugi at all. I'll show you how you get it before we get into the subject of the Georgia W, which is also available in the store now for a much more reasonable price. But as for the Serugi, if you want to acquire it, you would have to go to the Wings and Might bundle. I'll show you the contents of the bundle on the screen real quick. It includes a lot of Mystic Lanterns and a lot of big IJN crates that have the chance to drop the new Tech Tree IJN hybrid battleships that are currently in early access. And then also in this Wings and Might bundle, you can get the Ashitaka for a discounted price of 6,250 and the Key for the full Tier 7 price of 17,500 doubloons, although that chain of the bundle with the Key also comes with 3 Mystic Lantern crates in addition to the ship itself. So you could say, because they're adding the quote-unquote value of the Mystic Lanterns alongside the Key in that part of the bundle, technically, it doesn't cost 17,500 doubloons because you get more than just the ship, but you're still paying full price for the Key, and that's before you even unlock the option to buy the Serugi. In order to get the Serugi at the end of the bundle chain, you'll have to pay 17,500 for the Tsurugi itself, and again, in that chain of the bundle, you get 5 Mystic Lanterns along with the Tsurugi, so technically they could say there's more value in there than just the ship itself, but that's a little bit of a stretch. Now, in order to even unlock the option to spend the 17,500 doubloons on the Tsurugi, you have to go through the bundle chain, which will cost you 59,850 before you get to the end. So in total, to get the Tsurugi, you would have to spend 77,350 doubloons. No ship in this game is worth that price, especially not the Tsurugi. Not when you have something comparable that is available for sale in the store right now at a 50% discount. If you go to the winter holiday tabs in the store and navigate to the sub-tab titled It's Shipmas, you'll see the Winter Fleet is available for a 50% discount. And the one that I would recommend out of the Winter Fleet is this Georgia W. Now, the Georgia W is exactly the same as the regular Georgia. The only difference is it's got a W at the end of its name to signify that you are a fan of winter or that you are a whale, whichever one you prefer. And then it's got this sort of red and white and gray camo scheme that I think looks fairly nice, but if you don't like it, you could always replace it with some other camo. Anyway, the Georgia W is normally the regular Tier 7 price of 17,500 doubloons, but at least for this next month, it's discounted for 8,750. Now, that is a chunk of money, to be sure, and whether it's worth it or not, that's a personal decision that I can't make for you. But I'd say this is a good price for what you're getting here. And mostly the reason that I would think people are interested in the Tsurugi at all is because it has 6 457mm guns at Tier 7. Well, it just so happens the Georgia has the same number of guns and the same size. These are also 6 457mm guns, although I think they're better than the Tsurugis for a couple of reasons, and we'll get into that in a moment. But I should pause here as we take this shot against the Suzuya and miss, and show you my commander build that I've got running on this battle for the Georgia right now. It's a free-to-play build with William Sims. We've got Kondo and Iakino as the inspirations. We've also got the Epic Artillery Plotting Room mod in the 4th slot, and I really do recommend running that mod on Georgia because, well, the accuracy is good, I'll say that. And when I say good accuracy, I feel like it's hard to communicate whether accuracy is good or not in this game because too many people, at least in my estimation, seem to judge accuracy on battleships against a completely unrealistic standard. The standard in their mind that they seem to hold to is that every shell should converge on a single pixel and go right where you're aiming. Literally, no battleship in the game is capable of that, but it seems to be people's desire. Georgia is certainly not going to offer you that, neither is Tsurugi. And if you look at the numbers between Georgia and Serugi, these guns have a shell grouping or sigma value of 1.89, and Serugi has 2.1, which is certainly better. The dispersion numbers between the two of them are actually pretty similar, so I would say overall the Tsurugi is a little bit more accurate than the Georgia, but they both have a pretty similar reload time of 26 seconds. And the differences in the damage output are fairly significant. The Tsurugi's base AP single shell alpha is 14,000 even. Georgia's is 15,750, which still remains, well, no, it doesn't remain the highest single shell AP alpha in the game, now that Incomparable exists at Legendary tier, but Georgia and Ohio are both tied for second. That's a lot of damage, which of course you can buff using skills like we have on William Sims, gyrating drill bits for extra AP alpha. If you have Azerlane, New Jersey, that's also a good choice for this ship. And you can switch out the spotter plane that I'm using right now for the fighter, which will unlock the ability to use Arthas as an inspiration if you want to go that route. Can't do the same thing on Tsurugi because it doesn't have the option for the fighter plane. And then, if the guns are not enough for you, the armor is also better on Georgia. If you recall from the Tsurugi video, that thing has a 25mm bow and stern. Georgia's got 32. And the Tsurugi also has 32mm upper belt and deck armor, whereas Georgia has 38. Both of them have gigantic superstructures that are susceptible to penning, but, that's something you'll have to deal with in either case. Georgia's armor scheme is more robust. It's not going to be overmatched by anything except a Musashi, if you encounter one. And then the upper belt and deck plating of 38, that's enough to shatter a good deal of HE, whereas on Tsurugi, a lot of HE is just going to pen 32. So you're overall more tanky in the Georgia, and it also has the gimmick of the quick cooldown heals. The Georgia repair party reloads in 40 seconds, whereas the Tsurugi gets the standard heal time of 80 seconds. So if you can use the Master Mechanic skill with somebody like Takanashi Hoshino, for example, and get 5 heals, you are a little bit more tanky, both in terms of better armor with the Georgia and a quicker cooldown on the repair party. So there's all of that. The Georgia, in my mind, is just a better ship overall, and both of them, the Georgia and the Tsurugi, also have pretty similar maneuverability parameters. They're both very fast ships. I think the Tsurugi might be a little bit faster base, but the Georgia comes equipped with an 8% engine boost. And with this William Sims build, I am running gyrating drill bits, which does nerf the speed. But, the engine boost, it'll get you up to, I think, about 34 knots with the gyrating drill bits. And if you don't opt for gyrating drill bits and the speed nerf it gives you, then you can get pretty close to 40 knots with the engine boost in the Georgia. So what you have in both cases, Tsurugi and Georgia, are two fast, relatively lightly armored battleships, although Georgia's armor scheme is better, and they have hard-hitting 457mm guns, but only 6 of them. I would recommend the Georgia all day over the Tsurugi, and just because the price for the Tsurugi is so exorbitant and prohibitive, and the Georgia W is on sale, if you really want a Tier 7 premium battleship with 18-inch guns, then I think there's no question that the Georgia is what you want to go for. And there, you get a taste of the kind of damage that these guns can do. These, again, they have a bigger alpha base than the Tsurugi, so I don't think the Tsurugi would quite be capable of this much damage. And, of course, it has planes too, the Georgia. We're using the spotter, and you could use the fighter to unlock the ability to use Arthas. You can't do the same thing on the Tsurugi, it doesn't have the options for planes. So, for all of these reasons, I think Georgia is a much better ship, and if you're in the market for something like Serugi, I would recommend picking this thing up. The only thing you can really say that the Tsurugi has going over the Georgia is a better Sigma value. But with all the other context, I don't think there's any question that the Georgia is a better ship. It's been in the game a long time. It's been one of my favorite ships to play ever in the game. And this battle doesn't really show you its full potential, at least not in terms of damage dealing. However, we are going to end up getting a Kraken here, even if the damage itself is not all that impressive. But you saw with that shot against the hybrid IJN battleship that the knockout punch the Georgia is capable of delivering is quite lethal. And here against the Suzuya, who's slightly angled away, well, we only need 2 shells from the front 2 guns to get our Kraken and take him out. So yeah, the Georgia W. There are also some other W series ships available on sale, like the Constellation or the Kutuzov, both of which are Tier 7 premiums and the same 8,750 doubloon price as the Georgia. So, other options, but out of all of them, I think Georgia and the Constellation are the 2 that you might want to go for. Constellation is much more lightly armored than Georgia. It does have smaller guns, but the guns are really, really accurate, and they feel quite nice to use. Georgia, if you get it, it's going to troll you from time to time, but with this build, using Sims, Flammable Cannoneer, Marksman, and the Epic Artillery Plotting Room for 500 steel, I think the accuracy is acceptable enough. 26-second reload is pretty good, and the Georgia is just overall one of my favorite ships in the game. I don't know how many Krakens I've had in it, but this is just one of many. I have more videos on my channel of the Georgia from over the years with much higher damage done totals and probably a few other Krakens. So, if you are considering spending any amount of doubloons for a battleship with 18-inch guns at Tier 7, I say go for the Georgia W. Forget the Tsurugi. Hopefully it'll come back to the store someday for global XP or, just for sale for the flat price of 17,500, but as of now, there is no way the Tsurugi is worth buying. The Georgia, on the other hand, is. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.